Another day, another fresh round of Nintendo Switch 2 leaks, as it seems like Nintendo is poised to walk away with the record for the most leaked console in history, pre-official reveal from the company. These leaks today finally have to deal with some software, as we have a list of a bunch of different games that have leaked out there online due to retail listings found for Nintendo Switch 2 games specifically. We have price points of these games, we have publishers and studios that we know to tie them to. Some of these games have been revealed or seemingly figured out due to their SKU codes. Many of them have not. And then we even have prominent deal tracker accounts online teasing a potential reveal time for next week. We have new firmware data that further backs up the mouse support that we talked about in those new Joy-Cons, a side-by-side comparison of the current Switch retail box size to the supposed new box size to expect with Switch 2, and one of the most reliable mobile tech leakers going out there and creating a highly accurate Switch 2 render, basically a look at the console before Nintendo actually drops their first look trailer. So we're going to get on the same page with all of this info. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And we're going to first start off by looking at this post from Nintengod over on Twitter, as he outlined and nicely put together exactly what was spotted from a French retailer, which, by the way, we have a look at all of these placeholders, exactly what studios they're coming from. Some of these games have seemingly been figured out, and we will walk through those in a moment, but we do first get a look at the price point for many of these games, and in US dollars, this would translate to roughly that $70 price point that I think many of us were expecting to see Nintendo go to from a AAA third-party perspective, and of course their big AAA first-party titles like the next 3D Mario, the next Mario Kart. Likely these games will be sold at that $70 price point. We even saw Nintendo test the waters with that with Tears of the Kingdom in the current Switch's generation. So new Switch 2 leak by retailer confirms multiple third-party titles for Switch 2. Listings also confirm SSD like micro SD express cards for Nintendo Switch 2. We'll walk through that GameStop post separately a little bit later on, because in GameStop's back-end system, this has already been revealed that SD Express is a confirmed thing, and good news there. But this is what's cool. So you have a few different games. You guys can guess in the comments down below what you think these games are, because I find this list very interesting. We have 3 different games from EA. Ones that pop into my mind right off the top of my head, the Star Wars games like Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order. I think maybe those come over as a combo pack. Maybe they're individual releases, but I could definitely see EA bringing them over. Square Enix has already committed to going aggressively multi-platform this upcoming in these upcoming years. So all their kind of, PlayStation exclusive for the Final Fantasy games, timed exclusives, things like that. It seems like that's not their strategy anymore, and the power of the Switch 2, they're going to be happy to bring a lot of their games there. I am thinking games like Final Fantasy VII Remake, Rebirth, maybe even 16. And then I really hope that a Kingdom Hearts collection, the entire thing, is there natively day one for Nintendo Switch 2. This also reminds me of posts from Tom Warren and others online back in the day where they said, can't wait to see a ton of also coming to Nintendo Switch 2 once Nintendo officially reveals their console. This is further proof that Nintendo has a ton of third-party games lined up and ready to go, presumably around the launch window of this thing, because you're going to have all these companies that can easily port over a library of games that have only come to PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and then Xbox One. Like, you have a whole pool of games that you can actually pull from and go over to Switch 2 right away. Bandai Namco, the hope is both Elden Ring as a day one launch, Elden Ring Night Rain hopefully comes day and date. That may come later on after it launches on other consoles, who knows. And then I would love to see a Dark Souls 2 and 3, or in a best case scenario, just do Dark Souls the trilogy with a full remaster, 60 frames per second on all of them, because Dark Souls Remastered on the Switch was cut down to 30 frames per second, and it is noticeable if you do play it on the other consoles. So I think a full trilogy collection would be really nice to see from that. Of course, there's Dragon Ball Z Sparking Zero and some other ones that we could see mixed into that Bandai Namco list, but Bethesda, Microsoft, they're no stranger to going third party nowadays. The recent Indiana Jones game could be something to look at here. Doom the Dark Ages that we saw them reveal at a previous Xbox game showcase, all that kind of stuff could be in the conversation. And then we have a couple games from Warner Bros. And from Take-Two. And to point out the 3 games that may have been figured out, This user says, after researches with the EAN found in the leak, here's a list of the games that will arrive on Switch 2. So this is what they've looked at and compared number-wise to what's out there, and basically deduced that Tekken 8, FIFA, and Red Dead Redemption 2. I think all of these make a ton of sense, and I think all of them will be there. Red Dead Redemption already got a Nintendo Switch port. Why would they not want to also throw Red Dead Redemption 2 on there? The big question mark in many gamers' heads is, will Red Dead Redemption 2 run at 60 frames per second on the Switch 2 before the other consoles, as many people have been clamoring for that to be an update or a patch, and it hasn't happened yet. Maybe that will happen on the Switch 2 version. Maybe it will just be the 30 FPS, but nonetheless, I do think that all those games will likely be making it over to Switch 2. But very interesting that we have just straight up retail placeholder listings officially for Nintendo's next gen console, with price points and all intact from specific developers and publishers. So moving on from here, the actual supposed side-by-side comparison of the new retail box for Switch 2 compared to Switch 1. So you have, well, in case, you asked for it, and here is a size comparison between the covers in case the FNAC listing is accurate. So take this one with a grain of salt. This is according to the retailer that did leak or have all those placeholders leak online for Nintendo Switch 2 games. But the apparent size, if you just do a comparison to the current Switch case that we have today when it comes to the retail packaging, is as you see currently. So a Switch 1 game going up almost to the size of what looks like a Blu-ray case, but even maybe more akin to that of a traditional DVD case. Not quite as big, but a little bit longer than what you would find a PS5 game within its Blu-ray style case to be. It looks a little bit, longer overall, but it's going to be not quite as thick as a traditional DVD case, it looks like, in my opinion. But just an interesting tidbit there. Maybe Nintendo just wants to kind of pop out on the shelf a little bit more, and also kind of differentiate the Switch 2 games from Switch 1. I could see that being a viable strategy, because if you have software that looks identical to Nintendo Switch, you want to do something to signify that $70 price point and the software you're trying to market on there. So I do think a different retail size box does make sense. This just actually ties into the fact that we may see a lot of games that are modern day, current gen games make it over to Switch 2. John Harker is a insider with a fairly reliable track record from what I can see online over the course of time. And John Harker on Switch 2 ports, there's movement to try to get scaled Series S versions. Don't know how it's tracking, obviously. So the idea there being is just that all the modern day games that are coming to PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, obviously that Series S version is a requirement from Microsoft. We see certain studios run into straight up problems with it, as like the Black Myth Wukong team, the CEO, lead guy, just straight up said that getting that Series S version to run is actually what held back them bringing that game to Xbox. They say they had no Sony exclusivity deal in place, but just the fact that they had to try to get that thing to run on Series S is actually what held them back from being able to bring the game to Xbox platform. And so regardless of that, we know that for the most part, all of the major AAA third-party games that come to all consoles have a Series S version. And what this particular individual is hearing is that there's a lot of developers right now just trying to look at that Series S version and try to essentially, with less work, port that over to the Nintendo Switch 2 to get it ready to go, presumably with a pretty quick turnaround time and quick port. And that's why we could see a massive third-party library of games essentially day and date with Nintendo Switch 2 when it does indeed launch. So much stuff to get through here. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time, but it seems like a lot of third-party support out of the gate for Switch 2, which is very exciting. Switch 2 SKUs found in a system at GameStop. We essentially have confirmation that SD Express is a thing. That's really good. It's just a way faster technology, very close to that of a SSD, but in an SD card format. Basically your expandable storage for Nintendo Switch 2, you have these already on sale at GameStop, or in the back end system rather. You have Switch 2 micro SD card express, 512 gigabyte. 512 gigs doesn't really sell anywhere else. There's not a lot of use for SD Express right now because no massive, regular retail widespread product has adopted the technology. Nintendo presumably will, and we're already seeing back end listings go up for that. And, of course, this gets pointed out online, and then GameStop went in and turned this all into dummy placeholders. Now that it's been called out that, they just straight up up had Switch 2 in the title with exact models of micro SD cards that they were actually going to sell as well. And then interestingly, we have a Joy-Con charger grip for Switch 2 for the $19.99 price on that same listing. Getting into the potential reveal time briefly. Now, very much on the speculation side, but it is a tease from a pretty prominent account that has a large following online. Nintendo hints that the Switch 2 reveal will be next week. The way that they are hinting at this, and we will just go straight to their post, is will you be EE, that's the big part right there, picking up Donkey Kong Country Returns HD next week. Now, they capitalized the S. Some people think that means, Switch. Obviously, they're just maybe teasing the fact that that's a Switch tease, Switch 2 rather. BEE is the product code for Switch 2. So this was the same account that we referenced that said that they once upon a time were not convinced of a January reveal. Now they are 99% convinced of a January reveal because of something that they had heard. Would Nintendo do it in the same week as Donkey Kong Country Returns HD? Technically, there has been a precedent set where this has happened before. The 3DS did have I believe, Mario Party game launch on the same day that Nintendo dropped the first look trailer for Nintendo Switch. So Nintendo could actually do it on the same day, which would be Thursday the 16th. They might do it Wednesday the 15th or Tuesday the 14th. Or maybe it doesn't happen next week at all. Definitely don't get your hopes, dreams, and expectations set on it. But between that Nintendo of Japan banner changing to the Mario and Luigi like we talked about, which is the same banner they had when they revealed the Switch 1, then you have these big accounts hearing something and being convinced it's happening in January and putting out that BEE tease, which is the internal product code for Switch 2. And then even, not really putting any stock in Walmart Canada posts, but this is circulating on Reddit as well because Walmart Canada, known leaker, which to be fair, they have put out stuff that's been accurate over time ahead of Nintendo announcing it, has changed their banner and made a post about a Nintendo Direct. Walmart Canada changed their banner to the Mario and Luigi Present image that was recently put up by Nintendo of Japan's Twitter account. Walmart also made a pin post that questioned, now that we're a week into 2025, when do you think we'll see the first Nintendo Direct of the year? So the Mario and Luigi part may be teasing the Switch 2 reveal. They're obviously asking the question, when's the first Nintendo Direct of the year? I don't think we're seeing a Direct in January, but February, maybe early in the month in February, is absolutely on the table in my opinion. The week after the investors briefing, or even the week of the investors briefing potentially, I could see that being on the table 100%. So last couple things to touch on very briefly. So we've been talking at length about that optical sensor on the Joy-Con when you turn it sideways, the new orientation, and how you can presumably use a mouse and point click system on the Nintendo Switch or Switch 2 rather. The evidence continues to mount for this because in the newest Nintendo Switch firmware update, it seems to support some kind of mouse mode. So the notable entries here are add mouse wheel delta, activate debug mouse, set debug mouse autopilot state, unset debug mouse autopilot state. Now, the user points out here, before you say these are clearly just for Switch 1 dev kits, keep in mind that 16.0.0 released in February 2023 and 19.0.0 released in October 2024. Those dev kits would have had that functionality ages ago. What this suggests is some new functionality in line with previous rumors about mouse functionality and scrolling shoulder buttons. So yet more evidence in the latest firmware update that Nintendo's doing something with mouse controls for Nintendo Switch operating system or Switch 2 operating system behind the scenes. That is very interesting code to see pop up whenever we know there's an optical sensor on this next generation console. So from here, we have essentially a very reliable tech leaker post a 360 degree render of Nintendo's new console. Switch 2 leaks continue as the render of alleged full system is posted online. And what you need to know is essentially this 91 mobiles who have a history of posting accurate renders of unreleased tech, such as previous Samsung phones and Pixel devices. And this is what's really important. The system will feature an 8.4 inch screen. That is significantly bigger. I mean, I was expecting barely an 8-inch screen. That's what I've really been expecting up to this point in time. I don't know if the mock-ups ever confirmed the exact screen size because many of them it seemed to be unsure about the screen size. They more knew about the shell size of it overall. But this, according to this accurate, reliable leaker for mobile tech, 8.4 inch screen, 1.4 inches larger than the Nintendo Switch OLED as previously as previous reporting has suggested. Of course, we have all the same kind of stuff we've already really known about here. 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, as well as USB-C port on the top that will allow the system to charge in tabletop mode, something that's not currently possible on the current generation of hardware. And then just to kind of take a look at that video real quick, I actually have it loaded up here in the background. And, you know, very nice looking accurate render, presumably like 1-to-1 accurate with what this finalized console is going to look like, because you would assume that this person has the exact device specifics, just like many other accessory manufacturers, but they made a high quality render of the actual console itself with no casing on there or anything like that. So, you know, something that I found interesting enough to talk about, the accented colors, orange and blue. You know, it seems like I really wish they kind of would have done colored buttons with that. I think it would have looked fantastic. But overall, I do like the sleek design. The black color with just that accented color around the Joy-Cons is nice. And then of course, whenever you pull out the Joy-Cons, you're going to see the side of them also have that orange and blue. So I'm here for it. The Switch 2 leak floodgates are continuing to be wide open right now. I don't know how much else we can see leak besides like Nintendo's first party software lineup of this console before they reveal it. But let me know in the comments down below what you make of all these different updates and stories. What games do you hope we see there from a first party and third party perspective day one? And are you excited to see more detailed renders like what we have? Micro SD card express being all but confirmed for the console, with retail listings going up and things like that, and more data to support the mouse functionality from an optical sensor standpoint. So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.